Jesus, thank you so much for your goodness, your mercy, your calling. Um, Thank you for um, your love for Black students. Thank you for your love for us who want to join in to your love for Black students. Jesus, I pray that this may be a space where we experience just a little bit more of your love for us and your love for Black students. In Jesus, amen. Wonderful. So, like I said, I wanna take a look at some scripture. I'm gonna share my screen, but we'll sit in Acts 17. Maybe I'll share my screen. Um, sit in Acts 17. That might be a little too small. Let me see what I can do about this. Bam. Cool. Um, And what I like to do is I just like to read the passage and kind of let it wash over. This is going to be a very abbreviated version of a Lectio Divina kind of thing. Maybe mixed in with a little bit of OIA because I kind of like you to listen for uh, the pieces that stand out to you, right? So the pieces that stand out to you or help to clearly tell this story. So let me just read it and sit comfortably and we'll see what Jesus said. While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, as well as in the marketplace day by day with those who happened to live there or be there. A group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers began to debate with him. Some of them asked, "What is this babbler trying to say?" Others remarked, "He seems to be advocating foreign gods." They said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus, something like that, where they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting? You are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we would like to know what they mean." All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to the latest ideas. Paul then stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus and said, "People of Athens, I see that in every way you are very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I even found an altar with this inscription to an unknown God. So you are ignorant of the very thing you worship. That is what I am going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. And he is not served by human hands as if he needed anything. Rather, he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From the one man he made all the nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. I'm just going to skip towards the end there. When they heard about the resurrection of the dead, some of them sneered, but others said, "We want to hear you again on this subject." At that, Paul left the council. Some of the people became followers of Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus, also a woman named Damaris, and a number of others. Cool. As you hear that story, what are some things that do stand out to you?
That they liked just sitting around and talking about new ideas. That was something that stood out to me. And then the fact that they have like um images of an unknown god, or just like all these gods. And then and the image of the unknown God, and Paul was able to use that to be like, here's the real true Lord, which is cool.
It is. Yep. The things.
I think kind of what stood out to me was in verse 24 and like 26, like how it says, from one man he made all the nations. So it's like
Mm.
God made like everything. And I'm like, oh, like literally everything. Like that's a pretty bold statement,
Yeah.
or truth about the world. But then I think it also stood out to me, I guess it's sort of separate, like in verse 32, when it talks about like when they heard about the resurrection of the dead, like some sneered, but others said we want to hear again. Like just
Mm.
how real that is about like, oh, they just said that they kind of like rejected or were like, what is that? And then some people like were open to hearing it again. Um,
They said hi. Daniel said hi, James.
I see him. I see him. So myself was good. Thank you, Miss Maya. How about you, Miss V? Anything?
Um, what I've noticed, I think it's just one verse is really like stood out when you were reading it. It's just the part where he says, "For I walked around," in 23, "For I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship." It was like the word carefully that just kind of like was the center for me in here, where the word that God is making me see in here.
Amen.
I don't know. There's just like that is very descriptive of what he was doing. Like he wasn't just like looking at what was happening, but he was like carefully observing it. Yeah.
Amen. That's actually a great segue into one of the things I want to rap about. Um, I, I like this little activity because while we could just sit and, in Lectio Divina, at least the first time through, it's kind of a read through and just kind of let it wash over you. But I kind of invited you to a little bit more of a careful listening kind of thing. Like, actually, what is sticking out to you? Because I was only going to read it one time. Um, in verse 16, it says, while Paul was waiting for them in Athens, he was greatly distressed to see. Um, and again, kind of relating to that carefully piece, he was, kind of looking around. I carefully noticed, da 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 da. And um, it seems like that might be the word for us as we think about preparations for the summer. Um, Paul was kind of making this trek, I think, starting Thessalonica and stuff like that, and kind of made his way to Berea and then landed here. All because people were chasing him. He'd been preaching the gospel, and people were like, "Hey, kill him!" And then they, tried to get at him, and the people of that space would kind of escort him to the next city. He had some friends who was kind of trying to hide him and duck and cover with him. But in this case, he's in Athens, and he's just waiting for his other boys to catch up with him. So somehow they split up, and he's just chilling there waiting. And I feel like similar to Paul's weight, uh, summer breaks can kind of feel like the moment, uh, this moment of wait in between the very cool things happening, right? Like um, uh, we just finished leader selection and everybody's getting hyped up. We're prepping for NSO, da 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 da, and then summer, and then we got NSO, and we're meeting new freshmen, da 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 da, and and the summer can just kind of feel like this place of just wait. I want to invite us into a summer of attentive waiting. If we're gonna wait, I want to invite us into a summer of attentive waiting. And I think that what that ends up doing is it will um, it will help us uh, even as we go into whatever the next season is, NSO, those kind of pieces. It will help us know, oh, what are students holding as they enter into school? What are the 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 things around the world that I need to be mindful of as I start to care for Black students? How might I need to nuance or full pivot some of the content that I was thinking about in terms of Bible studies so that it fits some of what's going on in the world? Um, can we be attentive to what's around for the sake of the gospel amidst our Black students? Um, I'll say two other things real quick with regards to that. One is, yes, there is this invitation to attentive waiting, um, but at the same time, just kind of like Paul is maneuvering from danger, trying to take care of his body, right? Like he ain't trying to get killed in any soon fashion. Um, I think that there is a way in which we are invited to take care of our souls during the summer, and so to take care of your bodies during the summer. So even as I say, hey, be attentive, and I don't want that to feel like here's another weight that you have to carry throughout the summer. It's not like that. Take care of yourselves, but let us pay attention to the culture and the elements that in the text it talks about greatly distressed. Paul is greatly distressed. That might greatly distress us. Let us pay attention to some of the things that might greatly distress our students, the students that we serve. I told you I drag people into my stuff, and the stuff I'm kind of messing with and wrestling with, and uh, this has been a crazy semester when it comes to the type of rhetoric, the type of attitudes that people are having towards seemingly anybody who's not a white man. you know, and there are some specific things, and I know Black folk ain't the only ones going through it. Like so again, take care of your soul, take care of what you got, what you got to do. I realize that there are things for our Latino students, for our Asian American folk, for our Native folk, for just for women, for our queer brothers and sisters, right? Like there's a lot as campus ministers who try to hold the whole campus, who long for Jesus to bring revival to the whole space. There's a lot for us to sit in, but there are a couple things for our Black students that I think we ought to pay attention to as well. The and I'm thinking the full diaspora. There's this crazy rumor going out that um, uh, that um, uh, some of our uh, uh, non-African American folk are harmful in in the context of the U.S. You know, uh, uh, yeah, I'll leave that alone. There's the adjustment to I don't know if you had a chance to read any of the White House attitudes around history and the rewriting therein, and therefore, you know what I'm saying, like there's those kind of things. There's which again is this is impacting multiple segments of our or multiple corners of our campus, but um, the angst, the questions around like, man, what are we gonna do with um, uh, the DEI thing, and is there going to be, student services spaces? What are we gonna, is going to be funding and all those kind of things. So there's a lot of things that our Black students are holding, and my prayer for us as staff is that, and leaders, is that we would allow those greatly distressing things to shape and form our ministry, to shape and form our attitudes and our hearts and stuff. And so, yeah, an invitation to pay attention to the culture and the elements that greatly distress us, and allow those things to bring us to prayer. Allow those things to cause us to check in on our students in a particular fashion. Allow those things uh, to dictate conversations that we have with friends, family, ministry partners, da 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 da. Uh, and like I said, potentially allow those things to shape our content, our expectations around events and those kind of things. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm gonna shut up in just a second. As I think about like how do we practice this, like what are some things that we could be intentional about? I I want to challenge people to, in the midst of their quiet times as they connect with Jesus, to bring their Bibles and a newspaper. Bring a Bible and a newspaper, and pay attention to the things that distress you. Like I said, bring those things to God. There Sorry, so that's one thing. The second thing is there will be, just as a FYI, there will be a BCM prayer gathering set up for staff. May 28th, I think, is the date. There'll be details that are coming up. But join us in prayer as we again try to hold those things and choose attentiveness. Juneteenth is June 19th. There are probably things going on in your city, in your space. My encouragement is to get involved, check in, See where some of your local students are hanging out during that space. Um, uh, Catch a couple of blogs, Facebook posts, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, join into that celebration. Um, uh, right now, one of my favorite people to follow is Jonathan Walton. If you ain't kicking it with him, that could be another space. Again, just an opportunity, another opportunity to be attentive. What is going on in the world? And then as you're paying attention to those things, this is probably the only uh, student focused thing that I'll name right now is check in with your folk. um, Create a rhythm this summer where you are touching base with your Black student leaders. Um, uh, uh, don't don't stalk them this summer, but maybe create a rhythm where you're checking their statuses, where you're checking, you know what I'm saying? Just check on them. Um, Particularly as things continue in the nation continue to roll out and say, oh, now this thing is happening, or oh, I've heard this from whatever news media sources I'm receiving. Da da da. Let me just check on you. Um, I do feel like your leaders probably need to hear from you at least once this summer. And my suggestion is usually like once each of the months, right? So even if it's just a quick text, hey, what's up? Um, but maybe there are non-leaders who also need somebody checking in. I started by saying I feel like InterVarsity is the best place for Black students. Um, and part of that is because I don't know who else is checking on them. I don't know where else they're getting checked in with. Um, so just check on them. Again, I'm gonna shut up now. I know that's a slant in a different direction. I'd love to hear some feedback, kind of how that's hitting you. But I do want to make sure I sit. If you're coming in with like, hey, actually, I wanted to talk through this, then I wanna give space for that. I'm gonna stop sharing my little.
Hello. I personally appreciate this approach because I think it's also different from last year's. So that was cool. What is different from last year's approach to summer? But yeah, I think it was like really good, like practical, especially for me. I'm not a news looker. So I think like the advice, even just like, and I intentionally am not a news looker. So like the advice to like bring it to Jesus and then be intentional about checking in on students just about the news. I think it's like, yeah, something helpful for me.
Mine's actually similar to her. I think something that stood out for me in this is like being aware of what's like I do read the news, but like I could do better at like diving deeper of what's happening. Because of course, like what will happen this summer and what is happening in the world right now will be affecting our students, and like we need to know what is happening so we can serve them well. And it will, what happens these months will affect how they're doing in the fall. So it just like helps us to know how to pray better, how to be there for them, like serve them well. So
Any feedback, Miss Maya?
I think similarly, like I'm not a news person either. So I think, but it's always like, oh, I should be more like politically aware. my housemates are news people, so sometimes I'll get the headlines from
Get
them.
the yeah.
Secondhand news person. But yeah, I think it makes sense that like knowing what's going on in the world is how we can like minister and care well for students. And just like the simplicity of checking in, like it doesn't have to be this, oh, let's talk exactly about political stuff in
Yeah,
the United States, but just how are you doing? And then, go from there. So
yeah. And my wife is way more news oriented than me, so I vibe with that. I hear y'all, and like I said, I think there is something to taking care of yourself, and even in the midst of catching the news and stuff. My suggestion would be uh, make it part of work. Don't do it for kicks. Don't do it for fun. Don't do it just because you love students. Make it a work thing where you take your 5 minutes, see what's going on, so that you can continue to proceed with work and stuff like that. Um, uh, but there is something I think particularly this summer that there's gonna be something significant um, uh, about InterVarsity's ability uh, to really speak into some of um, the world drama. So the cultural drama. All right. So thank you for letting me jump on my soapbox. That's probably not what you came in for. How can I help?
I think it was necessary. I feel like I'm even thinking even more about like it's funny. I feel like my students, everybody just knows I'm not a news looker, so they're always like telling me this stuff. But like, what would it look like for that to change and just like, yeah, making it work time or because I have the app, so I see the headlines and that's about it. But I feel like this is too much. But yeah, and just actually intentionally checking in, especially with yeah um the diversity or the intent. I know for our school, like they sent out a letter saying that they will stop having like I don't know. I keep calling it focus groups in my head, but we're gonna stick with that. But yeah, ethnic specific groups. So yeah, just being intentional. I think this is very like helpful for me to be like, okay, girl, like get on it. So I appreciate it.
Okay, cool.
I didn't have any expectations. I was like, I'm gonna come. I don't know what we're doing. Here I am. Please, wherever y'all lead. I'm like, I'm just here.
Give me what you got. Give me what you got.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what. I
I ain't
just
taking
wanna.
I think I had a question around the topic of like, how do you check in on students without being super like awkward about it? Or do you like directly bring up the topic? Like, oh, how do you feel about what's going on in the world? Or I don't know, it just seems such like a I don't know, abstract way to think. Or is there like a prompting question or a leading question that can help get them there? Or if they can like an indirect way of being like, if they don't want to talk about it, they'll answer one way or opens the topic. I guess how would you approach
yeah,
the
yeah. Um, I'll share a thought, and then I would love to hear other ideas, or even maybe that thought will prompt other things. Um, uh, my supervisor, uh, when I was a CSM associate AD, like he would be like, "Yo, um, I just seen dot dot dot. Um, just want to let you know I'm thinking about you." And kind of what that did was, I hear these thinking about me. That's cool, praying for me, da da da. but two, it made me feel like I could respond or I don't have to. You know, um, I could be like, yeah, hit me too. Um, Tired of this or whatever, or it could be, you know, uh, the like emoji, whatever, right? Like, so that's one kind of quick thought. So it's not necessarily like, how do you feel about um, them wanting to nix the museum? Maybe it's not that, but maybe it's more like, man, I heard they were messing with the museum, and that's messing with me. Know that I'm thinking about you.
For me,
Mine's
I
very
know.
similar. Oh, sorry, you go.
I'm gonna start doing that. Oh my gosh. um, I was just gonna say really quick, like for me, I know there's some students who care and some students who don't. So usually, I kind of just know who to talk to. Like, I don't know. And then sometimes there's always like one student who comes in, tells me all the tea, and then I'm like, oh snap. And then so after she'll tell me, and I'll be like, okay, but how are you? Or yeah, there's just like some I kind of know who to like be more intentional about checking in on, and some I'll like just be like, oh, so and so was telling me this. Like, how do you feel about it? Like, I don't know, just gauging where they are on the topic. Yes. So sorry, I just read the virtual version of Nose Goes, but yeah. So yeah, that's kind of how I personally go about it. But I'm sure that would probably I think the way that it would change is checking in on like the main students who like tell me about the things already, like, and then like trickling down to those who maybe don't care, but like just still like, hey, I just want to check in, just see how you are. But yeah, um, but our campus it tends to be like people are either like all in high identity, caring about like all the things, or they're like more lax on like, I care about like one thing or two things. So yeah.
Yeah, mine's similar. Like, I just tell them like, hey, I saw this is happening, and depending on the student, but like every student, I'll say, I read what's happening. If you need to talk about it, I'm here. And I just leave it as that. Um, if it's a student that I know is struggling with whatever headlines, for example, right now Latino community are dealing with immigration stuff. So I saw one of my students was posting a lot on Instagram stories about it. And I know she has immigrant families. Like, I just was like, hey, I saw what's happening. I feel this way being an immigrant myself, and I know that you have been going through some stuff. Like, I'm like, let's talk, let's get coffee. Um, I am very forward with it. Like, I'm kind of a like person where it's like it's not like just it's not awkward unless you make it awkward kind of thing. But just letting them know that you're there for them if they want to talk is great, and they're not gonna think it's awkward at all. Um, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, um, I mean, this would be a little bit of a risk, but I think it's a risk to take now. Is my sense. Um, let's be preemptive about the the reality. And so what I mean by that is to say, like, what if you created a chat group, or in the chat group you named, yo, I'm gonna be paying attention this summer. I'm gonna be paying attention to y'all. And as a collective in the group, that's kind of where you're checking in. Hey y'all, I seen this time, praying through da da da. Holler if you need to talk, or so that way it kind of even lessens the weirdness, you know what I'm saying, even more. Like, oh, she's hitting me up right now, this individual space. But now it's, oh, just as a collective, we know it's gonna be interesting. We'll see how it play out. So that could be a cool gift as well. Great question, sis. Let's see. Were there any other questions kind of around either the content or even just coming in, holding your own? I got to figure out this for the summer, or
I know you mentioned soul care,
yeah,
especially like I feel like there's a different type of soul care that needs to go happen like when you're intentionally partaking in the news. I was just wondering if
sure,
you had like advice or tips, especially because I like the little 5 minutes. I don't know if you said 5 minutes a day. That's what I wrote, but
sure, yeah, yeah,
I know for me, the reason I chose out of it so much was just that I would be like super angry and stuff like that. So I'm just curious if you have any tips for soul care
yeah,
regarding news intake.
yeah. Again, my first tip is to count it as work. Don't sit in it. The doom scrolling is real. Don't allow that to be your story. Um, uh, my prayer is that we all have intercessors. Um, one, keep them posted that this is a value that you have, a vision you're trying to be about this summer, so that they can be praying for you. Right? It's the people holding up our arms in the midst of us being too tired, to hold it and do that. Don't hold it up by yourself. Invite your intercession team to um, into that with you, and maybe with that, like um, oftentimes uh, anger and frustration, uh, it's a sign that you haven't found the correct release. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it kind of builds up, and you have this pressure or whatnot. Um, Maybe you catch one of your intercessors or a friend or somebody else, you know what I'm saying, and say, hey, I'm gonna be sitting in this once a week. It's gonna be rough. I might need somebody to vent at, you know what I'm saying, and just um, maybe that's your MPD goal for them. I don't want you to give me money. I just need you to give me 15 minutes a week. So that I could just go off. Because this is crazy. I thought I had one more. It may come to me. Are there other things that you guys do? Like, how do you navigate? Um, Aside from, because even the headlines will tick you off from time to time. You know what I'm saying? Like, so what do you do for your own soul as you see headlines like, uh, I don't know, Trump starts work on building wall, whatever, what kinds of things come up for you? And $15. Care for your soul as difficulty arises.
This is not a very helpful one, but sometimes helpful because I get angry because
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah.
fired up. And the batting cages.
Batting cages, yeah. Axe throwing. Get involved in some
That'll
boxing
be your
classes.
ass to your supporter. Yeah. We have a staff with the boxing gym in her garage. Like,
Yeah,
no.
straight up, straight up. On Ivy's dime. I think um, and I already mentioned prayer, but I do think that there is that's not just a platitude, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm not just saying, oh yeah, pray about it. Like there is something to laying it at the feet of Jesus. Um, uh, some of the gift of anger and sadness and all those things is that it theoretically, hopefully, would draw us to, the cross would draw us to uh, the empty tomb, would draw us to the throne of Jesus. And I volunteer as tribute. If you're sitting in the summer and you're just like, hey, I need somebody to unpack this with. Um, I'm available. Actually, I'm available till July 1. Come July 1, I'm on sabbatical. But through June 30th, I'm sure things are gonna come up. Holla. Much love for y'all. Thank you so much. Let me pray for us and then I'll get out your way. God, as Paul was waiting for them in Athens, um, he had an attentive wait. Would you give us grace for that kind of summer? In your holy name, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Cleophas. It was good seeing you all.
I have these people calling me Cleophas. My name's James.
Oh yes, his new middle name is Cleophas since
No,
last
it
year.
ain't. Get out.
But yes, I will see y'all hopefully either next month or next week, Victoria.
I'll see you next week, and I'll see you, James, tomorrow. So.
That's true. We're gonna hang out. Yep. Thank you all
Bye.
so much for joining. Peace to you. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.